And Central Bank Governor Dr. Patrick Njoroge exits his Haile Selassie Avenue office this week, 8 years after his appointment. Now, Dr. Njoroge, also popularly known among financial journalists as the Monk, has had a mixed bag of both hits and misses. Our very own Faizal Ahmed has covered his tenure from nomination to appointment and to his last Monetary Policy Committee meeting. With the help of the industry players, it reflects on the time Dr. Njoroge was the banker of bankers.
Now, I have covered Dr. Patrick Njoroge from 2015 when he first appeared before Parliament's Finance and Planning Committee before he became governor, right to his last briefing 2 weeks ago and everything in between. Now, I'll be taking you through his 8-year tenure, looking at the highs and the lows and everything that he has done whilst in office for the last 8 years and looking at the legacy that he has left behind.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, members of the press.
After 8 years at the helm of the Apex Bank, Dr. Patrick Njoroge bids farewell to the central bank, paving way for Dr. Kamau Thuge to take over. Njoroge was appointed by President Uhuru Kenyatta on 2nd June 2015 and assumed office effectively 19th June 2015 after vetting by the National Assembly. Less than 5 months in office in October 2015, Njoroge's tenure experienced its first shock. Mid-tier lender Imperial Bank of Kenya was placed under administration, blocking millions of depositors' funds. This was closely followed by Dubai Bank's misfortunes and a run on Chase Bank.
Throughout his 8 years, he has really had a very tough environment to operate through. A lot of challenges right from the time when he joined. You remember when he joined, 3 institutions in quick succession went under. There was Dubai Bank, there was Chase Bank, and then there was Imperial Bank. Then you are going through a very rough patch. He managed to steer the ship quite effectively.
A year later, Njoroge was tested again after the National Assembly passed an interest rate capping law. This set the cost of loans at no more than 4% of the benchmark lending rate. Though a popular move among bank customers, the credit squeeze it created in its tenure saw the government rescind the decision.
There was a lot of pressure, ultimately, that this was going to be the way to make capital available to SMEs and to small traders at much more affordable rates. What I'm saying, it is now quite obvious that that has not actually transpired.
According to analysts, SME were reportedly denied loans worth 300 billion shillings, about 1% of the GDP during the period. Furthermore, credit extension to SMEs as a percentage of total bank loans fell to 15% in 2019 from about 25% before the cap was instituted. On June 1, 2019, the Central Bank of Kenya under Njoroge's leadership was once again in the news.
So who has any Kenyan bill, any other older bill?
This time, it had announced the demonetization of the existing series of 1,000 shilling notes, which was undertaken over a period ending September 30th, 2019. The objective of the demonetization was to address concerns of illicit financial flows and emergence of counterfeit banknotes that the CBK said had threatened the integrity of the currency. The success of this exercise still a matter of discussion with financial services sector.
Faizal Ahmed from Citizen TV. One question, Bona Governor. Are there maybe surveillance teams at various financial institutions that are currently in place to survey if there are individuals who flock money to the banks, forex exchange institutions, and even try and send money back into the country?
This is also in answer to Faizal's question about surveillance and things like that. We are not the only ones. It's not the central bank that takes care of all this. You have to set yourself forward and see whether this country, whether this economy will be driven by illicit flows. That's the question. Today now we sit here pretty and sort of say, well, okay, fine, I'm getting my salary at the end of the day or at the end of the month and things like that. To be different if we are sitting here and sort of wondering who you're going to, let's say, to swindle next.
More proactively, Njoroge was lauded for taking bold steps that created hygiene in Kenya's financial sector. These include the Banking Sector Charter, a commitment from financial institutions under his watch to entrench responsible and disciplined banking.
One of the things that I think he came up with during his time was this Banking Sector Charter that sort of like guides the industry in terms of what to focus on. And at that point in time, you remember, it was a time when you're coming out of the interest capping environment, and you needed to ensure that the banks are behaving in a way that sort of like guides them in a way that they are then responsive to the challenges that brought the interest capping in the first place. So things like, for example, customer centricity became an issue, risk-based pricing became an issue, ethics in the banking sector became an issue, and of course ethics is touching on the challenges that he had initially of the Imperial Bank, Chase Bank, all that.
I think the banking charter is a real testament to his leadership and collaboration with the banking sector to really look at what are the principles that we need to make sure are true for those who use banking services so that the wananchi can really benefit from especially that customer centricity that we talked about, because if customers aren't at the center of banking, then banking won't have a future in Kenya.
In 2022, Njoroge once again shone the light in the sector, coming hammer and tongs on digital lenders. The sector had flourished on predatory lending, leaving many Kenyan families distraught in their wake. For Njoroge, this was enough tribulation and he came cracking.
Where we started interactions with Central Bank, we were coming out of an industry that had grown tremendously since 2014 with 300 plus digital lenders, but all in an unregulated market. So for us, we saw it as an opportunity for us to really do a lot of education with the regulator to help them understand the impact of the industry, which had actually come in to really democratize access to credit and bring millions of Kenyans into the fold who are unbanked at the time. Therefore, we believe that the interaction so far has been largely positive, and we have been looking forward to being a regulated entity and being under the ambit of the central bank.
As he exits, the Kenyan shilling has been on a near free fall. Njoroge, however, says that this has been beyond his control.
We have a flexible exchange rate regime. We don't determine the value of the shilling. So unlike other countries that you may be familiar with. So I would encourage you to sort of do some work and understand how our foreign exchange market works, our FX policy, exchange rate policy, etc.
Dr. Kamau Thuge, do swear that the evidence I shall give.
Exit Njoroge, enter Kamau, and the industry will be watching how the former Treasury CS will navigate the waters and if he will be able to fit the shoes of his supervisee turned predecessor. Faizal Ahmed, Citizen TV, Nairobi.